So, hello everyone. My name is Harmeet, and I'm the co founder of Farmata Career Counseling and Training. We are a counseling and training firm based out of Bangalore, 12 years old organization. And I welcome all of you on behalf of Team Farmata. The format would be that I'll do a quick 5-7 minutes of introduction about us, and then we will move on to the topic of the day, which is careers in banking and financial services. And I will hand over the session to the expert. So I'll share my screen, do a quick presentation, and we start. So we are passionate about working with young adults and working professionals to nurture them and help them achieve their dreams. That's our purpose. As a 12-year-old organization, we are a team of career counselors, psychologists, educators, industry experts, and happy parents with a combined experience of 300 years. We are our team of co founders as well as advisors and mentors. We bring in that experience. And when we look at career counseling, our career guidance, or career as a decision, the most important part in our life, two important decisions need to be taken at before the age of 30. One is choosing the right career stream of education, and secondly is to make a right career choice. And in our experience of working with 2000 young adults and professionals by completing 1,000 hours of 101 career counseling and engaging with working professionals in different formats across geographies, across job roles. These are set of statements that we have been hearing continuously. Starting with, I don't know what subjects to choose in grade 11. I want to discontinue the current education. I want to drop out from the competitive exams preparation. I want to know careers beyond engineering and medicine. I need help to achieve my goals. I want to find out the right course to study abroad. I'm not enjoying my job. There is no career path. I'm not enjoying my job, and so I want to do higher studies. These are few of the statements that I'm mentioning. And when we listen to that, our young adults, we see that the challenge that they are facing is an unclear purpose. And if career clarity is not there, or uh, emotional support is not there, then they get into low self awareness and poor knowledge of self. uh, they get into a fixed mindset, not a growth mindset. There's a mistake in understanding the IQ and the EQ, overall poor self image, and dealing with the habits, what they have, what they don't have, how do they deal with that. I will, in between, please allow me, I have to give entry. Okay, I'll just continue and then I'll do that after this. Sorry. And when we have heard to these statements, our role as career experts at Farmata is to help them understand the personality, interests, their aptitudes, and intelligence. We do it both the quantitative, which is the scientific way, as and the qualitative way. And we help them right from the journey of deciding their subjects to building a corporate roadmap. So that's what we have been doing across the age group of 13 to 30, and in few exceptional cases beyond that, especially women who want to come back to the mainstream career. And how do we do it? We have a defined process. We do 101 career counseling, which starts with counseling, then assessment, and then guidance. And to help our young adults achieve goals, we have a career gym where we help them build that muscle and handhold them to achieve their goals. A little bit about the team. So I bring in a wide experience from education to entrepreneurship. And in that capacity, I have been working with students, with working professionals as a trainer, and then as an entrepreneurship educator. We have our industry expert as one of the co-founders, Mr. Suresh Tyagarajan. He comes with engineering background and worked across MNCs and has backed many awards in his role in these organizations. He is now a trainer as well as our co-founder. Our advisor, Dr. Richard, comes with 20 years of experience, both at the industry and the education level, academic level. Our senior co-founder, Dr. Inderjeet Kaur, she has 50 years of experience and largely in the public administration space. She has a book to her name where this book is being highly recommended to prepare for civil services exam. We have a career coach, Ms. Uma Arun, who comes with 22 years of entrepreneurial experience and then a coach. And our role as career experts, educators, psychologists, industry experts is to work as a team for the student. I say student both in terms of as a learner, I would say. Most of you, all those who are attending, are maybe student at the school level or the college level, or you may be working professionals. So here I intend to mean as looking at how your ecosystem in terms of your parents, your educators, and we as career counselors can help you and guide you. And yes, anytime we are reachable, you have my contact details. So that was about us. Before I introduce the speaker, I welcome who are joining now. We have the format is we did a quick round of introduction about Farmata, and we are now, I'm going to introduce the expert, and then we get into the session topic. So our expert, Manvendra, he comes with over 18 years of professional experience, with more than 16 of those years have been in the financial services industry. He has worked with large MNCs and with large Indian banks and across different parts of the country. He has considerable experience in setting up and leading business units. He has extensive exposure to program and product management across banks, mutual funds, and wealth management companies. He often writes for leading newspapers and magazines. And Manvendra has a postgraduate diploma in business administration from Narsi Munshi Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, and a BA honors in economics from University of Delhi. We welcome you, Manvendra. Thank you so much for sparing your precious time to guide our young adults.
Thank you very much, Harmeet. Thank you for this opportunity. You let me know when should I begin?
You may start, please. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So, as Harmeet described, so, what I'm going to do is take this opportunity to give you guys a sense of the topic, obviously, and that's where I spent much of my career. And then maybe highlight to you in the process what kind of job opportunities, what kind of roles that one should look at. And if time permits, we can dig deeper. I'm going to be obviously focused on banking and financial services, okay, which is popularly called the BFSI world. Many of you would have, it's so prevalent, it's so ubiquitous that you can see it everywhere, and you really can't escape it. And what's interesting is that the BFSI was the bedrock on which the Indian tech industry also developed and went to the rest of the world. And many of you being in Bangalore, you would have a sense of that as well. So how this works is that BFSI stands for Banking, Financial Services, and Insurance. And banking is something which obviously everyone knows. Financial services is a very, very wide mix from non-banking financial services to home loan companies, to credit card companies, standalone credit card companies, to mutual funds, to pension funds, to the stock market, and and obviously the microfinance, and obviously that's a whole range of things that are covered under the category called financial services. And then you have insurance. Again, insurance has 3 different types, which is life insurance, there's general insurance, and there's obviously something called reinsurance. So for now, for this session, we probably stick to the most visible part of it, and something that you all are quite familiar in some ways, is the banking industry. Okay, so the banking industry in the country as well obviously has gone through lots of changes. And when I used to do economics honors in Delhi University, we kept studying something called the Narasimhan Committee report, and how banks you had only private banks in the country, and then private banks were nationalized in 1969, and another bunch of banks were nationalized in 1981. But then even not all banks were nationalized. So you had a bunch of old private banks, something like Lakshmi Vilas Bank that you must have heard of or must have read about, or Karur Vyasya Bank, and Federal Bank as well. Then you had the Catholic Syrian Bank. These are all old banks. Okay, they didn't really belong to the government. Then you obviously then the mid 90s, when the government allowed a bunch of new banks or bunch of private players to set up shop. That's where the ICICI banks of the world came in. So ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, IndusInd Bank, and there used to be a bank called Global Trust Bank, which was set up during the early mid 90s. And then obviously then a new set of wave of new banks came in. You had Kotak Bank and Yes Bank. Okay, Axis Bank was also the original set, which was originally the UTI Bank. Okay, so you had these public sector banks. Obviously, the bulk of the private banks which were nationalized in 1969 and 81, those were public sector banks. Then obviously the big daddy among all banks is that whole SBI itself, which used to have a bunch of other banks, which now all got merged into one. Then you have then obviously you have the foreign banks, the HSBCs of the world, and Citibank, and Standard Chartered, etc. Of late, the government, or rather RBI, has introduced what are called small finance banks, and the RBI has introduced something called payment banks. And obviously, there are cooperative banks that you can see in around in your city or in the smaller towns, especially, which were earlier managed by the state government, but now are being regulated by the RBI itself. RBI obviously is the most important regulator in this whole fulcrum of financial services. The Reserve Bank of India is the regulator of all banks, is the supervisor of all banks. So they have control. They manage everything, every aspect of the financial services world, and RBI and banks in particular. Public sector banks have a little bit of a issue because it is owned by the government. Hence, the Ministry of Finance also gets involved. Banks as such are obviously play a very, very important role in the economic development of the country. They're the ones who kind of channelize savings into more productive purposes. They're the ones who can allow you to access to credit, meaning you can borrow to set up business or even to spend. They are the ones who can allow you are a channel or a platform where you can, use to invest in various financial products. Okay, so that's the way this whole banking stuff, the role that it plays. Now, getting to the point, what exactly what kind of jobs, what kind of roles are there for young people when they get started in banking? So if I was to look at a bank, banks can be divided into a bunch of segments. There is the most visible part, which is called the retail bank, which essentially is the branches that you see, and obviously much more than just the branches. There is that whole corporate bank, which deals with the large number of, which deals with big enterprises, big companies. Then you have within the bank, you will obviously have a legal and a compliance team, because don't forget, RBI is a strong regulator. So to be able to meet the norms and regulations that has been set up by RBI is a very, very important thing. Legal, obviously, because it's every transaction that the bank does, it's a legal agreement. It's a legal contract between the customer and the bank, and bank obviously has to be able to make sure that it is always on the right side of the legality. Okay. Then obviously there's human resources team, which obviously is common across all organizations. That's a very important thing, because don't forget, in banks, the most important factors of production are people. In addition, besides technology, obviously. So it is human capital which works in banks. Okay. So that is there. Then there obviously banks also have what is called a treasury. So the bank, which is a bunch of people who manage the bank's own money. Okay, because that's how they generate returns and give you pay you for what you park in the savings account, etc. And technology. I mean, without technology, banks just can't run now. Earlier in the early 90s, not even early 90s, actually, early 80s and late 80s, where SBI's branch across the street didn't know and didn't talk to each other. Obviously, that's gone. Now it's a long forgotten story. But without technology, banks, or not just banks, none of financial services can operate at all. Okay. So this whole now what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna kind of dig deeper in each of these segments and kind of tell you what kind of roles, what kind of jobs that are required. And obviously, there was this. I think some of you must have seen a bunch of question and answers that we had shared before this session. So I'll make an attempt to answer those as well. So in a retail bank, obviously the most visible part of banking for common citizens is the branch banking, and the branches that are present in various parts of the country. It obviously, the retail bank, as the name suggests, deals with individuals and deals with small businesses. Okay, when it deals with small businesses, a great deal of work that happens in a branch is about building a relationship with your customer, and obviously providing solutions for the customer. It's a solution for the customer. It could be helping that person get a loan, or helping that person get a credit card, or helping that person buy a mutual fund. Okay, all this is a relationship that you build with the customer. And so, banks are known to have what are called relationship managers, what are called RMs in common parlance. So that's something that is a very, very important role. And they're the ones who bring in the money. They are the ones who bring in the revenue for the organization. Without the income that they bring in, the banks would not really run. Within a branch that you see is always a bunch of relationship managers. They're not normally not sitting there. They're often out meeting customers. Okay, or they'll have special sections where they meet their customers, entertain the customer. The most visible when you walk in are people who are servicing the customer. So someone who's helping you update your passbook, or someone who's resolving a problem that you might have, or someone who's helping you, book a fixed deposit, and or for the matter, guys in the teller who are collecting cash. and taking a deposit, or helping you withdraw that. So those are things that are people who are actually who manage the servicing part of it, who are customer service executives, or who manage the banking operations. So again, bank branch operations is not just about serving customer, but it is more about managing the cash that brings in through the bank's own vault, making sure that documents are in place and all legal requirements are taken care of. All that is another set of people who do that, and obviously it is led by a branch manager. So typically, especially in the private banks, the branch manager is responsible for the profitability of a branch. Okay, so wherein he will go out of his effort to build relationship with key customers and bring in business, bring in revenue, bring in income. He'll support his relationship management team to do that. Okay, I'm again talking about the private banking stuff, where there's something called a deputy branch manager. Deputy branch manager typically guys who are strong in operations. Who are the ones who managing the customers walk in, walk out, managing the stuff that is required in terms of availability of cash, availability of application form, how it is sent out for processing, how the systems are updated, etc. So that's something that is that a branch operations manager or a deputy branch manager will do. So that's another set of role that you find in banking, in the retail banking. Okay, within the relationship management space, that you will see is that because the customers try to because the branch obviously tries to give its customer specialized service, right, or rather customized service instead of specialized service, because then what the bank does is that it segments its customers. So if you are a high net worth individual, I'll treat you differently. Maybe I'll create special sitting area for you. I will prioritize the service that I give you. I will give you better pricing or better discounts on the products and solutions or services that I offer to you. Okay, so that's a different. Okay, and similarly, if you're a high net worth individual, if you're an affluent customer or a retail customer, pure, the lowest bankable set of customers that you are, you will the bank categorize or segments you accordingly, and people who service those also differ, right? So typically the freshers or the younger people would probably start with working with affluent or mass affluent customers, and as they learn the tricks and the ropes, they graduate to managing higher net worth individuals or affluent customers, because ultimately the product requirement and the knowledge levels, etc., are very different as you go along. Okay, so that's another role that you need to be aware that that's how the segmentation, because it is about servicing the customer. It is about serving the customer. So the kind of customer needs a different kind of a person, customer interface with the bank as well, right? So you will have to have accordingly be equipped and skilled and knowledgeable to be able to do that, because here you are not really selling anything tangible. What you're selling is all intangible, and it's all about money. So it's so much about trust. It is so much about transparency. Okay, so that's something that you will increasingly realize that that's what happens. And again, knowledge levels would need to differ, because one of the very important things that you need to do when you do relationship management is to be able to engage in an intelligent conversation with your customer. So to have a knowledge much beyond just the product knowledge is going to be important. Okay, and especially when you're dealing with affluent customers and high net worth individuals, you should be able to have an intelligent conversation with them. So yes, general knowledge about what's happening in the economy, what's happening in the world is important. Don't ever think that just because you passed an exam and you got the scores, you're done and you're good enough to solve anything. No one's looking at your scores when you're right there in the job. They're looking at your ability to solve problems. They're looking at your knowledge and your ability to engage with the customer, and obviously, and how hardworking and how diligently you do your job. So that's an important thing. So don't ever just rely on the and your scores and marks that we typically get to have people talk about. Okay, so so that's about relationship management. So that's one way of this. Just as you segment the customer, you segment your employees and job roles as well. The other way to do this is to be able to offer product types. Okay, so if somebody who's just dealing with opening accounts, even account types are different. So obviously, people differ there. It has a different job role. Somebody who could essentially be offering to the customer, just home loans, or online trading account or credit card. These are a little bit of a specialized services or specialized products. Hence, need individuals who just do just that product line. Okay, so that's another way of how this product, how these roles are segmented within the. So as I said, customer type, product type. So it's a matrix structure there, and you can actually move in and out. I mean, it's quite fungible. If you do one line, you could go to, if you're doing customer segment level thing, you could actually do being a product level guy as well in terms of a retail bank. So I mean, there's also something that can do forex, and there's something of personal loans. I mean, I'm not getting to product lines there, but yeah, so that's how it differs and how it changes the job roles that you have an offer in a branch. Branch banking stint. So for somebody making a career in banking, a branch banking stint is really, really helpful because you really learn how it works on the ground. Okay. And really helps you in good stead when you go up. To give you a sense that a branch or a branch head is relatively low on the in the hierarchy of a bank. Okay, so it actually can go up to very high, many levels above a branch manager. Again, their branch types will have different level of seniority in terms of branch heads, branch managers. But yeah, so that's on the pure plain vanilla customer facing side. The other customer facing side, don't forget, is the branches. Banks maintain a very strong customer service telecalling unit. A telecalling unit also has various types of roles. There'll be a telecalling unit or a call center, which could just be doing inbound and outbound. So it could just be receiving customer queries and resolving it on the spot. There would be a bunch of guys who are just doing outbound calls, meaning if there was a customer who's been signed up for the account, who just signed up, who will just get a welcome call to be explained what the products are like. There would also be, because there are so many customers and all can't be serviced, especially the mass affluent and the retail kind of customers. You could be attached to what are called a tele relationship manager. So the guy is not physically present, but he helps you build a relationship with you on the phone. Okay, and he helps you solve your problems. Sorry, on the phone. Okay, so that's another customer facing interface that you have. And very importantly, many banks nowadays do is they do. So when you call the customer center or the customer care number for a service query, they rely on what is called service to sales. So in the process of servicing you, they will offer you a new product. Okay, so that's a very well defined, well tried out process within the banks. So you have one branch banking, and the other one is the call center, which are the two primary customer interface for a bank. And obviously, the roles that I described to you differ. And in one way, at least the telesales or relationship manager can obviously graduate to, or you can go in and out of. It's fungible with your regular branch relationship manager as well. In addition to all this, there's this whole back end which goes into running a bank. I mean, the whole technology aspect. I mean, technology, to be able to run technology in a bank is not some sidey thing. It's a very, very important thing. I mean, the fact that somebody who, Infosys built so much on its most important banking product called Finacle. I mean, people who've been in the industry would swear by Finacle, and Finacle is used across a very large number of banks in India and across the country. And there'll be guys dedicated to just running that solution within the bank. And so many other things which happen related to technology within a bank. I mean, the whole process flow, the whole deal with customers, etc., is all managed by technology, right? So technology is very, very important there. I mean, there's no way that there have been banks which have spun out their tech divisions as separate companies, right? I mean, ICICI was one which spun out its tech division, and then again, which did many other things with it. So you can see how important technology has been there, and obviously there are lots of roles within the technology team within a bank as well. Then again, all the stuff is obviously the background. So there's this whole operations team, people who manage operations, who are processing of documents and processing of application forms, etc. Increasingly, operations in tech are increasingly overlapping these days. Okay, because lots of processing happens all remotely and all digitally. Okay, so there are these, in the corporate offices. Typically, you will have what I call product managers and program managers. So people who deal with the customer segment types are called program managers, and people who deal with individual products, they're called product managers. So that's another set of people that you will deal with, and those guys obviously typically have had experience on the ground in the branches, and then reached that level, and hence are managing large teams, managing various programs of in a retail bank. Okay, another important one, increasingly important one, is the role what is played by the business intelligence team, because banks are such large number of customers. I mean, ICICI Bank has 50 lakh, no, 50 lakh customer plus it has, right? So to be able to deal with that kind of customer segment, you need somebody who's actually looking at the data, analyzing the customer segmentation, customer behavior, to be able to produce intelligent solutions, intelligent offers for customers. Okay, so this whole business intelligence is a very, very important thing. Analytics and business intelligence is a very, very important thing in banks now. I don't know how much of it is used in the public sector banks as yet, but at least for sure that in the private banks they use it very aggressively, and it's a very important tool in their product design, in their solutions that they provide to their customers. Okay. What do I have that I should cover with you guys? Yeah. So okay, now going back to this kind of stuff, in this whole thing, all these roles are not in any way very, very need any very, very great deal of specialization. You have above average common sense, you're hardworking, you'll get there. It doesn't matter what kind of a degree that you've got. Obviously, you will have some basic sense of numbers, etc. You should be able to calculate compound interest for sure. Without that, I think you'll really struggle. But so something as simple as that is good enough for you to get going in a bank, as long as you're hardworking and you have above average common sense and can solve problems. So that is what is required to work. I mean, within the banking sector, there are a bunch of, for example, the guys who work in the treasury. That's a very specialized role, and that needs a certain qualification to be able to get there, or to be able to even operate in that space, and hence their ability and your requirement for those roles is very different. But in a plain vanilla retail bank, yes, I mean, is what I said is what I just described earlier was required. HR obviously is human resources. HR is typically a very industry neutral role. So if you can be a human resources team in a bank, you could probably be in an insurance company as well, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of roles that you typically get in a bank, especially in a retail bank. How do we take this? Harmeet, do you any questions should we take right now, or should talk about any other segment?
I think it's a great lot of information in one go. We can take questions. Definitely, we can do that, and we can even look at the that pre-session set of Let's all of us test our intelligence there.
Okay, so I have that bunch of questions in front of me. So let me just go one by one. They're just simple 8 questions.
So and everybody can question by question. They can just put their answers on chat, and let's see how many we are getting the. I would say the correct answers, right? In this case, there are correct, right, and wrong answers are there, right?
Yeah,
in few of the questions.
Yeah, because the first question was what does the acronym BFSI stand for? So I think I've discussed that enough now. So it is actually banking, financial services, and insurance. Okay. Which organization regulates banks in India? That's also something that I've discussed here. It is the Reserve Bank of India, which is the regulator for all banks and bulk of the financial services in the industry. To get a job in banking and financial services, again, this is again I have addressed this. It is not essential to have any particular kind of a degree or a qualification. As I said, as long as you have above average common sense and you're hardworking, you will get there. You'll you'll do a good job of it. So what essentially is that bulk of jobs don't need any specialization. Okay. A career in financial services means that so every career, obviously, when you begin, you got to work hard. I mean, harder you work in the beginning, easier and further you go. So that's true for any job, any career. Okay, what is a government security? Government security is the government bonds. So when the government borrows from the market, it issues bonds. It's like a deposit. Okay. Mutual funds is a vehicle to mobilize money for investors and invest in different markets in securities. So it's a mutual fund is a vehicle for investment. What is an SIP? SIP, there's so many ads around, but yeah, SIP is a systematic investment plan, typically in a mutual fund. Okay, and what is a term plan? And term plan is a type of a life insurance product that is there.
Wonderful. Yeah. I think I request everybody to type your questions, and we can take one by one while we look into Manvendra, in terms of right from starting with Narasimhan Committee, which during my college days, I also got a chance to read that, right? Though I couldn't understand it completely, but yeah, I think that was the starting point for the banking industry, where reforms that started happening, and moving on from public sector nationalization to privatization of the banks. So that whole gamut that you have covered, coming to the private banks, to the global banks, to the small cooperative banks. And then you also spoke about the front end roles. So while you were explaining me the banking day-to-day operations, I could imagine myself that I am in a bank and all these people, relationship managers, and everybody is moving around me. So those front ends, along with your focus on, when you spoke about the legal side, you spoke about the technology side, you spoke about the analytics side. So these becomes the specialized services. And also, I think where a lot of documentation, privacy is required, again, people with that kind of skills come in.
Sure. Yeah.
And I mean, this was something very interesting to connect when you said that banks were the bedrock to technology, which means that the analytics could be the first starting point. Starting of the analytics could be the banking sector would be the first sector to start with when there's so much of business intelligence happening.
In banks, yes, but I think globally it is more retail than banks.
Okay, that's nice.
Because
so that was then, I thought that was quite interesting to connect there. And the new age careers, in terms of understanding that the growth path entry might be easy, But someone who wants to grow will have to keep on learning and exhibit those problem solving, critical thinking, and customer relationship kind of skills to grow in that sector. So opportunities are immense growing within that domain. Yes.
Yeah.
So entry point may be simple, but then as one wants to grow, has to build those specialized skills.
Yeah. See, okay. I mean, I'll give the audience a little bit of a thing there. Okay, and Simarpreet, I'll answer your question as well.
Right.
So typically, what happens in this is that the way to analyze which way to go is if you were to look at CEOs in banks in the country, especially the private banks, you'll realize that all of them have done a good stint in assets, and assets and liability in a bank. So assets is where to put it very simply is about loans. Okay, so you got to prepare yourself like that. So if you've done liabilities when you were doing only accounts and third-party products, get yourself a stint in asset. So that kind of stuff helps. I mean but I think large banks are pretty flexible in that sense that they don't really restrict that you just do this, as I said, because there is no super specialization there. So you can actually move from doing personal loans to doing home loans, or rather, actually, personal loans is also an asset, but from doing account opening to relationship management to doing plain vanilla home loans.
I think I can add there to Simarpreet's question. Is MBA the only option, and why opt only to do MBA after, especially an eco honors degree? I think you have to decide in terms of, and you know that your interest is in finance. That means you're good at numbers. So if you're good there, you can do a very specialized course in data science after finishing your honors, and then you may get into a bank if you're wanting. That's the sector where you want to get into. Do different roles, as Manvendra said, something around numbers. It could be start with asset side of the in the banking domain. Do it, experience it, and then understand where do you want to build your specialization, and then decide up your MBA, right? That would be a better way to just doing an MBA and saying, okay, I'll go in finance domain, HR or marketing, whatever it is.
So to add to what Harmeet said, typically when I was finishing college, that's what most people did. You finish college, you do an MBA, and then you start working. Fortunately, it's changed now. People gather a couple of years of experience and then go and do an MBA. So I'm not in any way saying that is MBA the only option. Not really. What's important is to have a good degree and have a good post-graduation degree, irrespective of whichever specialization it is. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's about a good degree. Okay. And that's how you will do well in that particular field.
Right.
And again, within what I just told you guys is just one part of financial service, and rather one half of banking. The corporate banking is a different world altogether. And if you're really strong in finance and numbers, etc., why would you look at, say, equity market research and being a fund manager in a mutual fund company, or for that matter, being a private equity guy? Okay, cooperative banks and public banks in terms of remuneration. So I do not know. Cooperative banks, I'm sure, are a little more underpaid, etc. Also because the quality of staff and their limitations are very different. But to compare a public sector bank versus a private bank, private sector banks typically pay you less at an entry level as against a public sector bank. Okay, but then that difference doesn't last very long, because once you start doing well in the private sector, you can grow fast. Because don't forget, within the corporate world, banking and financial services pays you slightly more, or at least a little more than the rest of the industry. One very simple reason, because people are the most important factor of production in the banks and banking financial services. You don't have to set up a factory and things like that, right? So So banking salaries are slightly more than the other sectors. And that's how it has been typically been, because when I started, we were slightly late because, banking was considered a sunrise in banking, and telecom was considered a sunrise industry in the late 90s.
Right.
And so people who started then really grew fast and really fast. So we people like us who got stuck that, we've grown fast, but suddenly we said, okay, this guy already there. So when is he going out? So that we can move up. So.
Yeah, no, in fact, when you mentioned about Finacle, the Infosys product, in 2008, I was working with an entrepreneur and doing his business plan. And actually, he was an ex-Infosys person, had set up his training institute, just training graduates on Finacle and deploying them in banks. So that was his only business and super successful. It was like spin in and spin out.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the, I think, kind of spectrum and the whole opportunities that banking sector provides. Right. Yep. So okay. Yes, Simar.
Let me take that.
Yes, please. You will only take that.
Data science. So as I said, business intelligence is the core. I mean, I wouldn't say core, but it is really, really important now in banking and financial services. Wherever there is a large number of customers, you have to have data science. There are dedicated teams. ICICI has more than 200 people just doing business intelligence and data science. Just that. That is a little bit of a specialized thing. So not everyone can get in there. You've got to have a good degree. I mean, typically, ICICI would. I'm giving an example. ICICI would typically recruit CAs, guys from IIT graduates, and good business schools graduates in the data science team or the business intelligence team.
Right.
That's surely a cut above the others, right?
And Simarpreet is also asking, what are the job profiles? I think they are called data scientists itself. That's the job role.
No, so banks will likely not. So what my understanding, at least in the private banks, is that they call BI, which is called business intelligence. Okay. Data science is not really the word they use. Oh yeah, I know one bank here which calls it the data science unit. So that's just nomenclature. So effectively, the word is to be able to use data to create better solutions, create better journeys for the customer, and hence enhance the customer's engagement and the bank's revenue.
Right. So I'll also give an example, Simarpreet, over here, what Manvendra said when he said this type of customers come in right from a regular retail banking services to a high net worth individual. In that sense, that's what the data is playing. When they're seeing that how this customer's, let's say, bank account is changing, is going on and in fact from one account to 2 accounts to 3 accounts, that's all the role of, that's what the data is looking at. And that's the role of the data scientists or the BI team would look at. So and how this person is moving, the kind of transactions that the person is doing, then from which country to country the person is moving. So that's what data can say, because where Manvendra mentioned that ICICI has to manage accounts of 50 lakh customers, no one can look at each individual customer there. It's the role of the BI team that's going to do that. And that becomes specialized. And you have an added advantage because you're doing eco-honors. So that's a good stepping stone to get into that segment. No, Manvendra?
Yeah, I know. I mean, Delhi University. I mean, for example, if you were to do a Delhi School of Economics MA, you would easily get a job in data analytics. Not just an ICICI Bank, even American Express,
Yeah. So an American Express, Citibank, these are like being the global banks, and they are much more.
And for that matter, that credit card businesses.
So you may look at, if you're looking at a post-graduation, a continuity is good, and Delhi School of Economics is one of the best there. But if you're really looking at, deciding about MBA or any other specialized course, then start working in a bank if that's the sector that you're looking, and then decide your specialization. I think that would be a better way to think. Do you really want to do an MBA, or you want to actually specialize somewhere in the finance stream?
Yeah, so I think so. It's so flexible now. I mean, again, Simarpreet, it's so flexible now. I mean, you have Ashoka University here. I mean, you could in Delhi here. You could do some program there. It doesn't have to be a MA in economics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. Anybody else? Any question? So we are covering just one small portion
Yeah.
of only the whole terminology: banking, financial services, and insurance. We are just covering one small part of the B word. So
Yeah.
half of the B is what we are covering today.
Yeah.
Right. So anybody else? Any question? So, how is the internal development? I mean, how do people internally move? It's just a progressive way when you say, okay, you enter as a relationship manager, and do you upgrade to, let's say, branch manager? Or is it somewhere they have to do some courses? What is the, because there are some, see, for getting into public sector banks, we used to have the bank exams, the bank PO exams, right?
Yeah.
So that system still prevails, or
Yes.
getting
Bank
into
PO exam, obviously, bank PO exams still remain, and they're there. Obviously, they still provide the best bank cadre, management cadre for all the public sector, public sector banks. Sorry, so that the SBI chairman is a bank PO. So that's there. Yeah. So that obviously is there. Obviously, they have that whole security, job security, and stuff like that. And obviously, and they have that additional advantage of the scale. We kind of customers and kind of reach SBI has, no one else has.
No one else has, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I mean, the SBIs of the world, I mean, ICICIs of the world and HDFCs of the world do not compete with SBI in terms of, they will not get into a rate war. They will not say that, if SBI is offering at 5.7%, I'm going to offer it at 5.6%.
That's the big daddy. Nobody is going to go near the big daddy.
From experience, I'm telling you, they've tried it and they've kind of lost their, realized it's not worth competing with SBI on that count. You compete with SBI on technology and service and product types.
Okay.
So I think let me answer these questions that one has come from Simarpreet and then from Avanti.
No, Avanti.
Yeah, no, I think Simarpreet also asked something. So Simarpreet, what course or internship can I pick up while I'm doing eco-honors? So Simarpreet, it depends on what you're looking at. If you think you want to get into corporate finance, then it's a very different thing that you need to do. If you're looking at doing fund management, and being a stock investing in the stock market, or being a private equity guy, so it's a different type of things that you would need to do. That's one answer to it. The other answer is that at this level, you do anything which gives you an exposure to that is good. It's going to add value to in any way. So I mean, I've given you two answers, up to you to choose which one you like to. But yes, again, it clearly depends on what you think you want to do, or maybe just take up something and get a sense of it, and it'd probably help you get an exposure and understand what you could potentially do. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to kind of discuss with you if that helps. Discussing, what does a fund manager do and what does for example, in insurance, in insurance there's this hugely important role called the actuary.
It's growing like anything.
And that's a very, very specialized role. And people who've done statistic honors and people who've done eco honors get into become actuaries. And you have to clear that exam, and you're paid the top of the line there.
Right.
And it's such a specialized thing, and it's also a regulatory requirement because the business can't run with an actuary. You can't set up an insurance company without having an actuary team.
Right.
So anyway, I hope I've been able to answer some of what you're asking, sir. Maybe not fully, but nevertheless. Let me get to Avanti. What
kind of post-graduation courses?
Yeah, so there she's got clarity, investment banking. So I'm unsure whether to work after my undergraduate course or jump into a postgraduate course. Depends on what kind of postgraduate, as long as what kind of post-graduation you're looking at. If you're looking at say a MA in economics, or after BCom also you could do a MA in economics from Delhi University or a Delhi School of Economics, kind of an institute. That's a great place to start. But if you're looking to MBA, my suggestion would be, and given my own experience as well, is put in a couple of years of work, learn the thing, and then do. Then you will actually you'll be able to get better value for your MBA. Unlike our time when everyone just did it as if it was just a college degree.
Right. So there are now specialized courses for investment banking also. I know an organization. Avanti, I can introduce you to that. Simarpreet, I can introduce you to the data science course if you're looking at and explore. Right. So there are very specialized, experienced organizations who are providing these courses to undergrad students in the sense of that they are doing it even with this, or once you complete that and then you do those courses and get into specialized jobs then. And that could be a starting point for you. And then you can explore, as Manvendra said, get into it, get your hands dirty or cleaned and understand whether you're liking it or not liking it. But having that experience is nothing beyond that. And especially Simarpreet and Avanti, they are talking of those areas where internship is more in terms of doing some specialized courses. You can look at all the online platforms where you can get these short-term courses and get a feel of it. There is no per se any small-time internships in these areas where you do and understand. Then you get into a role itself. No?
Okay, Simarpreet, so FRM is a fabulous degree. Okay, if you get an FRM, if you clear the FRM degree, it's fantastic. But people who take up FRM are clear that they want to do risk management.
Right.
And people who get into clear FRM typically end up doing corporate banking kind of stuff and all. Okay, they would not be doing retail banking. Because FRM is or for the matter doing purely risk within the bank. Because ultimately risk management is a huge thing, and which is very important. There is someone called Chief Risk Officer, which is designated within the bank.
Right.
So you can imagine. You can imagine how important a risk manager's role is within a bank.
Yeah. And back end, I think those who specialize in technology and risk management, they work in corporates like, let's say, TCS or Infosys, and who have further banks as their customers at that global level. So your FRM degree is not only restricted to the banking sector, but working in MNCs who further service the banking.
Yeah, because ultimately what is technology doing? It's only finding solutions for customers, right?
Right. Yes. Doing CM, is it mandatory to take up CPA as well? Manvendra?
I don't know really, because it depends on what you
what do you want to what are you trying to achieve out of it?
What's the end objective? It's great to keep doing programs, okay, guys, but what is the objective? What are you trying to achieve? I say you always need to have a strategic goal and tactical plans.
I think the major problem, Manvendra, sorry to interrupt, but it happens when the non-science students come in. What happens? They feel that everything can be on the plate. You think like an engineer. You are an engineer in that commerce or economic stream, and come with that focus. That's what. Yes, Manvendra, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that it doesn't matter degree, as long as you're not there to get yourself a PhD, or for that matter to get yourself a Nobel Prize. It's okay. You can learn it. There's no rocket science. Unless you're doing roles like rocket science, it's a different matter. Unless you want to be a scientist, you want to be a PhD, an academician, or you are here aiming for the Nobel or something, then you need to get that kind of really dig deep and keep going in. But for jobs, understand what you want to do. What's your objective? If you want to be a CEO of a bank in the next 25 years, then figure out what needs to be done. For example, I'll tell you that you better have a branch banking experience and you better have an asset product experience. That I can surely tell you, without an asset, there is no CEO in the country of a bank who doesn't have an asset experience.
Right. So we are almost completing the time, and Simar, Avanti, and others, if you have specific questions, please email or message. And Manvendra is also a career mentor who gives 101 career mentoring to help you to build that roadmap. So if you need that, you can reach out to me and we can schedule a session with a 1 hour session, 45 minutes to 1 hour session. And that's, yes, it's a paid session, but it's a career mentoring, where we will go deep down to understand where you are, to what roadmap you are looking at. If you need that, please reach out. But in common parlance, we are addressing your question in terms of the broad spectrum. Think on two lines. One, as a commerce and an economics student, why are you doing this, and what is your goal? And you are in those streams where experience matters a lot. Experience in terms of getting on the job and doing it and experiencing it, that matters a lot. Do that, unless and until you know that what is the clear postgraduate degree that you want to do. If you have that aim, well and good. But if you are exploring, work first, do your basic degree, and then before deciding what is the core specialization which is close to your heart and you want to become an expert, please have some work experience. And secondly, think about what is your relationship with money. How are you looking at money? Are you looking at money to as a support and as a growth path? Then that also is a way to define your career path in these domains. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And plus, everyone's condition with money is very different, right? If you're running a student loan, you'll think it differently versus, where you're thinking of going abroad and, making a gap year and traveling the world. It's a different story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's how the different job roles or different kind of work that Manvendra mentioned, those come in play. Are you looking at the entry level, or are you looking at very specialized? And that's how you look at that you should be recognized in that domain. And that will also be defined by your relationship with money.
That's right. Yeah, that's important. Yeah. That's very important, actually.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Manvendra.
Sure.
It was lovely to have you, and very informative. I mean, I learned a lot, and it was a recap to my education that I've done in e-commerce and economics. So wonderful, and the huge spectrum of one part that you touched. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Okay. Appreciate that. I hope it was an added value to some people at least. So that's important.
Yes. Okay. No, I think definitely. If your session has even given them some triggers, I think we have achieved our goal. We may not have answers to everything, right?
That's what I believe. It's not a mathematical calculation, right?
Equation that we are solving, right? Yeah. So, but if you have triggers and you have now questions, or if it has put you in thinking, we are happy to address that. Please write to us. Please email to us or call us. We would be happy to address it. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend.
Okay.
All the best.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.